Hello, welcome to Technical Founders. My name is Carlos Lara, software engineer and entrepreneur, and in this video, we'll be continuing on the book, The 4 Steps to the Epiphany, which is customer development, getting customers for your startup. So in this video, we'll be covering customer validation. So after you've gone through customer discovery and all those steps that we discussed, the next step is customer validation, when you actually go ahead and validate your customers and your product and everything with actual sales. So the fundamental outcome of customer validation of this step to the epiphany is building a sales roadmap. And I'd like to use words here by the author Steve Blank from his book because I think it's very good. So it says, what every startup needs is a method that allows it to develop a predictable sales process and validate its business model. So after customer discovery, a startup needs to ask and answer these questions for this step, to pass this step. So the first one is, are we sure we have product market fit? And I know we had answered this question in the last step in the last phase of the previous step, customer discovery. But here we need to actually be completely sure that the product that we have is a fit to a market that satisfies a need and customers are willing to pay for it. Before in customer discovery, you were learning about customers, finding out everything about them, and discovering whether there was a need, or whether the product had and the company had a potential there. So now we need to actually validate it with actual sales. So at this point we start getting sales and going through the sales process, because like I said before, acquiring customers, it takes time and may not be the right customer. Only certain customers can be acquired initially. And for the first you're looking for customers called early evangelists. So early evangelists. So at this point, you're not trying to sell to mainstream customers who may have very sophisticated needs, who may have very high standards for products or services, but you're looking for visionary customers who see the future, who see the innovation, and who are willing to, let's call it, tolerate an imperfect product or service. So you need to find those early customers, the early adopters, the early evangelists for your product. So that's when you start to answer the question, do we have product market fit? And if they're paying for it, then that's the ultimate test. So sales, they're actually paying for it. Now, do we understand the sales process? Very important question, because especially if you're doing B2B, so if you're a startup selling to other startups or to other companies, corporations, there is a sales process of prospecting and then scheduling meetings and then learning and then closing. And so there's a sales process. And so do we actually understand it? And we got our first taste, let's call it, of the sales process during the customer discovery step to the epiphany. But here, now, because we're actually trying to sell the product to customers, obtain revenue for the company by selling the product or service, then we actually start to know if we actually understand the sales process. Here we start to jump from hypotheses to the truth. We started doing it in customer discovery, but in customer validation, it's just very real now, because now there's money involved and the customer either pays or doesn't. So that's the ultimate test again. Now the next question is the sales process repeatable? Because there's no point in having a sales process that only works once, or that only works in a certain situation or under certain circumstances. We want to have a repeatable sales process. We want to have a predictable sales process. So this is something that we are going to learn here in validation, if we can repeat the process. And I'll talk in the future of a book called Predictable Revenue by the guys at Salesforce. That's what it's about. Predictable revenue is how to create a predictable and repeatable sales process for your organization. Now, the next question is, can we prove it's repeatable? So we may think we have a repeatable sales process, but can we prove it? And the ultimate test, of course, is orders. So purchase orders. So the customers paying money for it. Different customers are all giving you orders and paying for it, and you use the same process to acquire these customers. Then you're proving that it's repeatable. Now, can we get orders with the current product? Because again, at this stage, we're not looking for mainstream customers, we're looking for early evangelists. So for the early adopters, the first initial set of customers. So the product at this point, of course, is not perfect. It will never be, but at this point the product is in its early stages still. So with the current product, can we get these orders? So again, very important in this step is to see if we can actually get sales with the current product, or if we may have to change the product or iterate based on feedback in order to get orders or to get sales from customers. Now, the next question that we have to ask ourselves is, have we correctly positioned the product and the company? Because it could be that you have the right product and the sales process, it can be repeatable, it can be predictable, but are we actually targeting the right customers? Because there's many different kinds of customers. There's different customer segments, consumer products, there's all kinds of people, potential customers that could be. And in customer discovery, you are already getting closer, so you should have to discovering that, so you should have a very good idea now. But again, paying for the product or service is the ultimate test. So how do we answer this question? Well, is who we think is the customer, are they paying for it, and are they responding well to the message of the company, etc. So again, really sales, if the customer is actually paying for the product, is going to be the ultimate, is going to be the best test here to get an answer to this question, if we have correctly positioned the product and the company. Now the next one is, so do we have a workable sales and distribution channel? So in customer discovery, we started validating our hypotheses initially, learning about whether our hypotheses were correct, and we had a distribution channel hypothesis, a sales process hypothesis. And we started validating by talking to customers, but since at that point they're not paying, it's still in the realm of hypotheses getting refined. So at this point in validation, again, is when you're bridging, when you're jumping from hypotheses to reality, to the truth. So do we have a workable sales and distribution channel? Again, going back to the others, is whether customers are paying, whether they're responding well to the product, whether they're coming back, etc. So by measuring the behavior of customers or users, and by behavior I mean, are they actually paying for the product or are they not paying for the product? Oh, and by the way, there's a test that you can do to actually check, to see, to get an idea whether a customer is the right customer or whether they actually have a need for your product. It's just to call them and ask, if the product were free, would you buy it? Would you implement it right now? Would you actually get this product or service if it were free? If the answer is yes, then it's a very good chance that you're on the right path. And if they say no, which surprisingly happens a lot of the times, then you know you may have to change something or to look at a different customer segment. That's very interesting. So here again, we're building a sales roadmap. We're validating the sales process. We're creating a predictable and repeatable sales process to acquire customers. So as we learn whether customers are paying for the product or not, or whether they're responding properly to the message of the company and the product, then we start to realize whether we have a workable sales and distribution channel. Because again, in customer discovery, we learn the customer, where they learn about new products and services, what distribution channels you could acquire the customers through. So here we're actually testing it now and what we're measuring again is real dollars in sales where the customers are buying the product. Now the last one is, are we confident that we can scale a profitable business? Because like we said before, if you're losing money, if you cannot have a profitable business model, then there's no point in creating the company and creating the sales process and establishing all these things with rigor if we cannot have a profitable business model. So after selling the product, because again, that's what we're doing in customer validation, we'll know if we can actually have a profitable business model, if we can actually make money and earn money from that sale, and over time if that's going to lead to sustainable growth and profitability for the company long term. So in the next videos we'll start getting into the sub phases of customer validation and go into more detail about how to go about building a predictable and repeatable sales roadmap. So thank you for watching. I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, any thoughts, any comments, please leave them at the bottom. Also, please subscribe so you're the first to be notified when the videos come up, and I'll see you next time.